Thank you for coming. I am Sumit Thakur. I am Senior Manager of Product Management for Amazon SageMaker. And today I have with me Piyush Kalam, who is a Senior Product Manager for Amazon SageMaker, and Ankush Prasad, who is the Principal AI Architect at GoDaddy. And together, we are going to talk about how SageMaker Studio can help you accelerate your AI/ML workflows. Gentlemen. Now, before we talk about Studio, I just wanted to talk about a few of the key trends for generative AI adoption in the enterprise. So generative AI is reinventing customer experience, improving productivity, and increasing operational efficiency across many industries. So it comes at no surprise that many of the organizations are stepping up and accelerating their investments behind creating new AI-enabled solutions. And very often, these solutions are built on the foundations of multiple models. The organizations are evaluating multiple model providers and often picking up the best model for the task. And when it comes down to customizing these models, organizations are opting for low-cost, effective techniques like RAG and fine-tuning instead of pre-training these models from scratch. Which means if we were to help our customers accelerate building their AI/ML workflows, we need to give them a choice of a broad selection of state-of-the-art foundation models and tools to help them pick, customize, evaluate, deploy, and monitor these models. Which is why we built SageMaker Studio. SageMaker Studio is a single unified interface for data scientists and developers to build their end-to-end AI workflows, from preparing data to evaluating models, tuning them, and then finally deploying and monitoring them in production. And today, I'm going to walk you through all the purpose-built tools that Studio supports for every step of your AI workflow, starting from discovering and preparing data. Studio comes fully integrated with Amazon Data Zone Business Data Catalog. With Business Data Catalog, your data publishers across the organization can publish and share high-quality data sets. Your data custodians can set up the governance guardrails, and data consumers, such as business analysts and machine learning developers, can discover, subscribe, and use these data sets to create insights. And oftentimes, the data workers would use tools like Jupyter Notebooks to create these insights. In Studio, we have turbocharged the Jupyter Notebooks with polyglot capabilities, which means you can write your SQL code and Python code in the same notebook. And once you are done preparing your data processing workflow, you can quickly scale it up by connecting your Studio notebook to an EMR serverless endpoint and submit a distributed Spark processing job without having to manage any of the underlying infrastructure. Here is how it works. So this, what you see up on the screen, is the screen for SageMaker Studio. On the left panel, you can find all the tools inside SageMaker Studio. So you first go to the asset data catalog, where you can find all your data and ML assets. You can start searching for a data asset based upon things like publisher, create date, and the data attributes that you're looking for. And once you find a data set of your choice, right from Studio, you can open this data set in the Polyglot Studio notebook. We have developed a data browser extension for notebooks, which, by the way, we have also contributed back in the Jupyter open source. Using this data browser extension, you can browse your data set schema, including the tables, the columns, the data types, and the descriptions, and start writing your SQL queries in the main notebook cell. We provide first-class support for SQL in the Polyglot notebook, which means you get code auto-completion, syntax highlighting, and everything that you will expect from a first-class programming language support. You can also, with a simple click on the top, choose to dump the results of the SQL query into a pandas data frame, so you can analyze the results right in line in the notebook cell. Now, once you are done developing your data processing script, you go back to Studio. You can go and choose an EMR serverless endpoint and then attach your notebook and submit a Spark job remotely using the Apache Livy, which connects your notebook to the Spark endpoint, and run a serverless Spark job where you don't have to manage any of the underlying cluster. Once you are done preparing your data, the next step is to pick up the right foundation model for your task. And for that, Studio comes with a Jumpstart Model Hub, which gives you access to more than 300 open source and commercial foundation models from very popular providers like Hugging Face, Meta, Mistral, AI21, and Stability AI. You can choose a model and then quickly run an evaluation test on the model to assess its efficacy for the task at hand. You can choose between the automated evaluation, where you can use the built-in evaluation algorithms and the built-in prompt datasets to test the model on various dimensions like accuracy, toxicity, semantic robustness, and bias. You can also choose to do a human-in-the-loop evaluation, where you can bring in your own AI expert workforce or choose one of the workforces supported by Amazon. This is especially useful when you're trying to align model responses for use cases like you're maintaining your own brand voice or tone. Here is how it works. Back to SageMaker Studio, you go to Jumpstart, and then you start browsing all the models from different model providers. Let's say you love Hugging Face. You go and pick up a model, and then you can start setting up an evaluation task right in the Jumpstart Hub. You can choose to set up an automatic evaluation, in which case you can pick up the task for which you want to evaluate the model. For example, a question answering task, a text generation task, or an open-ended text generation. You can choose the task and then choose the dimension on which you want to evaluate the model, like accuracy, and choose one of the built-in prompt datasets to fire up an evaluation job. The job gives you an evaluation score, using which you can come up with a set of model candidates which are performing reasonably well for the use case. Now, once you have those candidate models, the next step is to start tuning these models on your private data to improve their accuracy. In SageMaker Studio, tuning a model is easy. From the Jumpstart Model Hub itself, you can either choose the sample notebooks that you can find on the Model Hub homepage itself to get all the sample code you need to tune these models on SageMaker, or you can use the visual interface as well. In the visual interface, all you need to do is to point to your training dataset, the S3 bucket. Studio automatically fills in the reasonable defaults for all the model hyperparameters based upon the model architecture you may have chosen, which lets you quickly get started with your model fine-tuning without having to worry about the cost performance of your workload. Now, tuning a model is often an iterative exercise. You will try out different models, different data sets, different hyperparameters. And as you perform these experiments, you want to keep a track of them over time, so you can measure your progress and maybe even reproduce those experiments down the line. And for that, Studio comes integrated with a fully managed MLflow. With the fully managed MLflow integration, you don't have to manage any of the underlying infra for MLflow tracking servers. You can use the familiar MLflow SDK and the MLflow web app to start tracking, comparing, visualizing, and evaluating your models, and even register those model versions into the SageMaker model registry for taking any further deployment steps. So this is how you can access MLflow. All you need to do is just go to the application hub inside Studio, and from there, you can launch MLflow as a full-page application into a separate browser window right next to your SageMaker Studio instance and start tracking and comparing your experiments. And we're going to show a demo of all these capabilities that I'm talking about a little later in the presentation. Now, once you have identified a reasonably good model candidate which is performing with a reasonable accuracy, you want to get it deployed. Now, deploying in SageMaker is easy. You have a couple of options. You can use the SageMaker Python SDK. It comes with a built-in model builder and model deploy utilities, which lets you deploy most of the popular open source model in just 2 steps. The utility automatically picks up the most optimized runtime inference container for these open source models and deploys the endpoint for you. You can also use our recently launched inference optimization toolkit to implement even more advanced optimization recipes, which includes techniques like speculative decoding, where you can use a smaller draft model to pre-generate the tokens and reduce the latency of response from your foundation models. Or you can use model quantization, where you can clip the weights of the model and compress it to make it more memory efficient and reduce its latency. Or you can use compilation to compile the model for the target hardware and accelerate its performance. I would encourage you all to give the inference optimization toolkit a spin and give us some feedback. Now, once you have deployed a model, the story doesn't end there. You really want to connect all the pieces that you have developed so far, from data prep to model tuning to evaluation to deployment, into a streamlined workflow. So you can automate this workflow and retrain the model whenever you need. Automating the workflow is simple. You can use our Python SDK. It comes with a remote decorator utility where you can annotate the individual steps in your workflow with the step decorator, and it automatically picks up your Python functions and then stitches them into a SageMaker pipeline. Or you can also use the visual drag and drop designer. The visual drag and drop designer is a point and click interface. You go to the studio, you open the designer, and there you can find a repository of the built-in pipeline steps. You can start choosing the steps and drag them onto the visual canvas and connect them into a DAG to start making your pipeline. You can also customize the individual steps of the pipeline. For example, for this evaluation step, you can give your own code, your own runtime container, your data, and even set up your environment variables to completely customize the execution of this step. Now, we spoke about so many different steps in the ML workflow today. And of course, as you build these complicated workflows, you need assistance along the way. And for that very reason, we introduced the AI Assistance in Studio, which is powered by Amazon Q. This was launched earlier in this year at the New York Summit. With Amazon Q Assistance, you can ask questions about how to use a SageMaker capability, or generate sample code, or even troubleshoot any errors in executing that code right in line in your Studio IDE. You can not only use the Amazon Q, but you can also bring in your own custom foundation models that you might have trained on your private code repositories to give you inline assistance for your private APIs. It's very flexible in that way. We developed it as an extension for Jupyter Lab. This is another one of the open source projects that we contributed back to the Jupyter community. You might know about this project. It's called Jupyter AI. This was developed by the SageMaker team. With Jupyter AI, you get this extension in the extension panel of Notebook, from where you can open the chat window and start asking your questions right next to your notebook. And any sample code that the model generates for you, you can just copy it into the main notebook with a simple click and start executing that code. You can also highlight the code in the notebook cell, vice versa, and ask the chat window to explain the code, debug the code, or even optimize the code. And this experience is not just available in Jupyter Notebooks inside the studio, but also available in a suite of fully managed IDEs that we support in Studio, including the Code Editor IDE, which is based on Code OSS, the Visual Studio Code open source. Now, today, I discussed a bunch of tools which are purpose-built tools for every step of the machine learning workflow, which you can all find in SageMaker Studio. However, our customers are asking for more. They are telling us that they have a choice of their own tool that they want to integrate with SageMaker. And very often, integrating these tools could be cumbersome. First, you need to evaluate, assess, and certify these tools to meet the security and compliance bar in your organization. Then, you need to take these tools, deploy them, build, scale, manage, and operate them, which results in a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting for your operators. Or the other option is to use the SaaS version of the tools, where then you have to make a compromise and part away with the security of your data, as you need to move it out of your governance boundaries to a third-party application. Customers were asking us for a better solution. So yesterday, we announced a new capability, Amazon SageMaker Partner AI Apps. With partner AI apps, you get access to industry-leading generative AI and ML development applications by leading AWS partners that run privately and securely in your SageMaker development environment. We are launching with 4 partners. In no particular order, our first partner is Comet, who is a creator of a popular experiment management platform. With Comet, you can track, compare, visualize your experiments, and even evaluate your models. Our next partner is DeepChecks. They are a creator of a popular open source package for model evaluation. With DeepChecks, you can establish the best practices for doing continuous debugging, quality assurance of the model, and any compliance certifications of the model before they get deployed into production. Once they're in production, you can monitor them using the Fiddler observability platform. Fiddler is a leader in AI observability. With Fiddler's observability platform, you can monitor for several issues like data drifts, accuracy degradations, and take automated actions. And finally, with Lakera, you get a low-latency AI application firewall that protects your Gen AI applications from several security threats, like prompt injection attacks or unintended leakage of PII and sensitive data. All these 4 partner apps, they're available as fully managed applications in SageMaker, which means SageMaker takes care of scaling, upgrading, patching, and operating these applications for you. Furthermore, these applications run in a private and secure VPC, completely cut off from the public internet, which means there is absolutely no risk for your data being exfiltrated or your IP being sent elsewhere, and continues to stay within your secured governance guardrails inside SageMaker. And finally, these apps are natively integrated inside SageMaker Studio. With native integration, you don't have to switch between multiple different interfaces. You can just discover and use these apps as part of your natural development workflow inside SageMaker. This is how it looks. It's the same app gallery from where you could access all your IDEs and MLflow and other applications. You can also access the partner apps. First, you can enable a partner app. Here is an example of Comet ML. Your users can create a request for the platform administrators to enable this app for them. Once the app is enabled, the app goes into a launch state, and from there you get a URL for the app and a one-click button to launch the app as a full-fledged application right next to SageMaker Studio. All these capabilities that we spoke about today, all the AI tools, they're not just available in SageMaker Studio, but also in the new SageMaker Unified Studio that was announced 2 days ago. With Unified Studio, we are bringing in all the AI capabilities of SageMaker Studio along with our best-in-class data analytics and Gen AI tooling into a single interface. And you can access all these capabilities in Unified Studio starting today. And now, I'm going to invite Piyush to come on stage and to give you a demo of all these capabilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumit, for that great overview. With a quick show of hands, how many of you have deployed an LLM and used it for inference? How many of you have fine-tuned an LLM? All right. Not many hands up there, but I hope by the end of this session, everyone will have the confidence to go customize their own foundation model. Let's get started. For the demo today, let's take a really simple use case so that we can explore all the end-to-end capabilities that SageMaker offers to customize your own models. Let's assume you're a developer or a data scientist at a fintech company, and you have financial analysts who are basically looking for answers to questions like the one that's up on the screen. So for example, on a daily basis, an analyst might ask, what were the 3 key risks highlighted by non-tech S&P 500 companies back in 2020? It's a really specific question for a specific sector in a specific time frame. Now, the response to that question that these analysts craft need to be concise, actionable, and driven by actual quantitative data. How do these analysts today build such summaries? It's actually a painstaking process. They need to read through a lot of dense documentation that's published by the SEC or the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's publicly available for everyone via the EDGAR database. So if an analyst is focused on a particular sector, they would spend anywhere between 6 to 12 hours analyzing one document from one company, and they are looking at 10 to 20 companies every quarter. So you're talking about 60 to 20 hours minimum of time that's spent on reading, parsing, summarizing, and sharing those well-crafted summaries with the broader team. What if we could use a GenAI application that can automatically parse these dense documents, extract all the key insights like trends, strategies, and risks, and keep providing these consistent outputs as and when new forms like the 10K, 10Q, and S1 are available in the SEC database. We are going to do exactly that. We'll build our own model that's specifically specialized in the financial domain, and it's really good at providing these summaries to the financial analyst. So let's get started. All right. So this is the homepage of SageMaker Studio. As you might already be familiar, there are a lot of great resources for you to get started here. So for example, you can find code samples, blogs, and other marketing material, as well as actual use cases listed. Before we go ahead and build our own model, why don't we explore what's already out there? We should just look at off-the-shelf foundation models and see how that would respond to a question that we just saw on the screen. So on the left-hand side, you'll find this tab called Jumpstart. This is a central model hub where you have models from open source as well as third-party providers. For example, you have Hugging Face Hub, you have a Meta Hub, you have models from Cohere, etc. For today's demo, let's focus our attention on the open source models from Meta. As some of you might already know, Meta has published a series of Llama models, and it has different versions, different model sizes. We'll just look for the one that's the latest here. So that would be Meta Llama 3.2. And these models go all the way from 1 billion parameter to 90 billion parameters. If I take a model that's somewhere in between, let's take the 3 billion parameter model, you'll see a lot of great details here. Let me zoom in a little bit. For example, what are the licensing terms and conditions? What was the performance of the model against some standard benchmarks? So you can see the side-by-side comparison of all the versions of different Llama models. And towards the end, we have recommendations for which hardware type is right for hosting the model, as well as fine-tuning it. Now, I want to try out this model, so I'll click on Deploy. One great thing about the SDK as well as the UX of SageMaker is that it abstracts away a lot of the lower-level complexity for the end user. So for example, the details like what container I need to use, what packages need to be uploaded, what are some of the standard parameters I need to set, all of that gets taken care of. But at the same time, if you are an advanced builder, you have access to all those lower-level configurations via the SDK. So over here, I'll just stick to the defaults for the instance type, for example, and then leave the advanced settings as is, and I'll click on Deploy. Now, the deployment should bring up an inference endpoint. The process to bring up an endpoint can vary from like 1 minute to up to maybe 10 minutes. Really depends on the model size, where the model is located, and the inference instance type. What I did was, just before this session, I set up a test endpoint for us. It's this AIM355 Llama base. You can see all your endpoints in this section right here. And I'm going to query this endpoint now. Let me switch over to code, zoom in a little bit again. And here, all I'm doing is basically set the query. So I'm going to ask the model, what were the 3 key risks highlighted by these companies in 2020? I want it to give me actual quantitative data, not just a summary of it. And instead of relying on other sources like other market reports, I wanted to analyze actual 10K forms. And I wanted to keep the response quite concise. And with a single API call, this invoke endpoint call, I can send that query to my base Llama model. And here is what the model responds with. So it does a decent job of highlighting all the risks, but some of the quantitative data is missing. So it's not that specific. And towards the end, the responses are quite irrelevant. So I'm not able to trust this model at this point. I need to really go ahead and customize it so it kind of caters to my particular type of user. So that's when I decide to go ahead and fine-tune this model. Now, there are, at a high level, 2 ways to fine-tune any model, or rather customize any model. You can use retrieval augmented generation, RAG, or fine-tune that model. Now, RAG is useful in scenarios where you have a high volume of data that's changing quite frequently, and you don't expect the model to respond in a very strict format. And it does not inherently update the weights of that model. Whereas in fine-tuning, if you have a large repository of static data sets, you can go ahead and update that model to its core by just training certain layers of that model. So for this example, we are going to stick to fine-tuning, and I'll show you a few steps in that process. Before we actually fine-tune a model, we need to prep the data so that the model can understand it and put it in a little bit of a consistent format. What I'm doing here is downloading all the relevant SEC forms from the Edgar database for the S&P 500 companies, and I'm storing them in my local Jupyter Lab environment right here. I'm also uploading a copy of those into an S3 bucket, which is where our training job is going to pick up the data files. Let me show you an example of one such document. So this is an Amazon 10K document back from a few years ago. And as you can see, this is unstructured data. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's quite a dense document to go through and whittle it down to just a few sentences of insight. If you have structured data, let's say you have certain data that's being updated in your S3 bucket. One great thing about Jupyter Lab, again, is that you don't have to jump around different windows to just look at different data in different repositories. With this data discovery tab right here, you can connect to your data sources like S3, Redshift, or Snowflake even, and query your tables directly. So I have already set up this connection between S3 and Jupyter Lab. The S3 bucket is being scraped using a glue crawler. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and click on Query Notebook. It will auto-populate my notebook with this sample query. And when I run it, it will show me a subset of the data that's sitting in S3. So for example, you see the company name, the profit and loss statement, number of employees, etc. All right. So we started with model exploration. We have our fine-tuning data set up. Now the next step is the actual fine-tuning job. Let me go back to my Jupyter Lab Explorer and open my LLM customization notebook. So just like we saw how easy it is to deploy your model by using SageMaker UI, it's equally easy to actually fine-tune your model using the SDK as well. So over here, I'm specifying the model ID from Jumpstart and specifying 3 different fine-tuning jobs in parallel. So these fine-tuning jobs only differ in the hyperparameters. It's always a good idea to try a few variations of your hyperparameters so that you can look at the performance of each and then make the call to deploy the right one to your inference endpoint. In this piece of code, we are logging each of our fine-tuning jobs into MLflow. MLflow is a really popular tool for experimentation among data scientists, and it gives you that unified view of all your training and fine-tuning jobs so that you can make the assessment of which model is performing as per your expectations, and then go ahead and deploy it to production. So again, the fine-tuning job can run from a few hours to a few days, depending again on how large those models are. So what I did was, again, before our session, I ran a few fine-tuning jobs right here, and they've been logged into MLflow. To look at these model fine-tuning jobs side by side, I'm just going to click all of them and hit compare. As you can see, it shows me the hyperparameters for those fine-tuning jobs, as well as the performance metrics of all those models. And then this is a side-by-side view of each of those. It's showing just the diffs. And then if I want, I can also look at other types of visualizations here. Now, if after my assessment of all these 3 fine-tuning runs, I think the run number 2, it looks good enough for me because it's the metrics kind of meet my expectations. So I'll go ahead and try to find that model in my model repository. So if I go back to my SageMaker Studio environment again, you'll see all the models that have been trained or fine-tuned under this models tab. The model registry allows you to not only store your models, but also version them. So in case you have multiple iterations of the same base model, or over time you have different users contributing to the same set of models, you can keep a history for lineage and auditability. If I click on this particular version, should take a few seconds. Right now, it says the status is approved, but as you can see, there's lifecycle management built into the model registry. So if you, let's say, are part of a larger organization where the deployments to production are controlled by a senior person or the wider team, you can have gating mechanisms to make sure that no model that's underperforming or spitting toxic content makes it to production. So there's an explicit approval that's needed for it to progress through your higher level of environments. So we just did experimentation with MLflow, which is an open source framework. But we also announced our integration with partner apps. So Comet ML is another experimentation framework that's quite popular, and you can set it up again with a single click. I'll just open it up quickly. This particular fine-tuning job was not trained with Comet ML, so there's not much data, but this is the general look and feel of this capability. All right, cool. Switching back gears, we'll come back to our models page to look at the models that we just fine-tuned. So I'll check the model version 1, and I want to go ahead and deploy this model. Again, it will take a few minutes for this model to actually show up in our endpoints list. So I've set it up ahead of time as this Llama fine-tuned inference endpoint. Now we have both our base model endpoint as well as the fine-tuned model endpoint set up. Now we want to see, after spending so much time, have we actually improved the responses? Is our expectation being met after fine-tuning this LLM? So I'll switch over to the Jupyter Lab environment here. And again, I'll use the same query as before, but this time around, I'm going to send it to 2 separate endpoints again. So this would be an invoke endpoint for API call for the base model, and this is an invoke endpoint API for the fine-tuned model. After we run this cell, these are the responses. So on the left-hand side, no surprises. It's the same response that we saw earlier during the exploration phase. On the right-hand side is a new response from the fine-tuned model. It looks much better. So it has, again, the 3 risks highlighted, but at the same time, there's some quantitative data as well. In addition to that, it is showing some examples, and it's not rambling like the earlier model was. So we have achieved our goal of getting a fine-tuned model up and running that's going to help our analyst answer some of these tough questions and spend much less time than before. So what I did here was just test this model on 1 question and 1 answer. Maybe there are other variations that I need to try. Maybe there are other type of analyses that the person wants to run. It might not be possible to run all of these manually. So, with the traditional software development paradigm, you might want to stress test your model at scale. For that, we have evaluations built into Studio. So let's say you have a particular model in mind and a particular task. In our case, we are doing sort of a summarization of documents. I'll go to my Studio environment again. Click on Model Evaluation, and say Llama. You have the option to either do an automatic evaluation, or with a human in loop, you can send out the model to data workers, and they can do a thumbs up, thumbs down evaluation of your model responses as well. Let's look at the automated evaluation part of it. Over here, I need to first select my model. I'm just going to take one of these models and then select a task type. So you have task types like Q&A, classification, text summarization. I'm going to check the first one. And then within text summarization, you have the option to score the model on different dimensions. So this one has accuracy, toxicity, semantic robustness. I'm going to stick to accuracy for this one. And we provide default data sets as well. So in case you don't have that evaluation data set handy, you can just use whatever is available from Studio, or you're free to, again, upload your custom data sets to S3 and link it up here. And once you add in some of the other information, there are a lot of defaults, of course, but you're free to override those. You can run your evaluation at scale and see how this model performs. Now, again, with our recently announced partner AI apps integration, we have alternatives. So for example, deep checks is a popular framework for evaluating and monitoring your models. This is what an example of that dashboard would look like. So it will give you a score of that model's responses at scale, and then it will show the scores on every dimension as well. So for example, it's showing here, is a model leaking any personally identifiable information? That's a security risk. Or is it providing any toxic content? And you can catch these kind of errors quite early using something like deep checks. Just to go back here for a minute, if I take any of these sample notebooks, let's say I pick this sample code, and let's assume this was handed to you by one of your colleagues and you're not really familiar with this piece of code. You can use a built-in integration with Amazon Q for the generative AI assistance while you are updating this code or maintaining it. So if you select this section of the code, let's assume, and you right-click on it, you'll see this generative AI option, and I'll hit explain code. On the left-hand side, you see Amazon Q is trying to explain what this code exactly does, section by section. These are live responses from Amazon Q service. And at the end, it also gives me a comprehensive summary of what the key benefits are and what the purpose of each section of the code is. So you don't, again, have to leave your environment or copy-paste code in different services as you go on this Gen AI-assisted journey with SageMaker. So we went through a bunch of steps, from data prep to model exploration to fine-tuning to model deployment and then evaluation. We did that with the Llama 3.2 model. Now, let's imagine like in a month, there's a new provider on the block, and they have come up with a new, better LLM. You would have to go through similar set of steps again, but you don't want to build that framework over and over again, either manually or through code. You want a way to automate that entire workflow for you so that anyone on your team or you yourself can run it occasionally as and when things like models or data sets change. That's why we have SageMaker pipelines, that it's a native ML workflow service that's built inside Studio itself. And you can use either the SDK or the visual drag and drop editor to build these end-to-end workflows. So again, before this session, I authored this ML workflow for the journey that we have taken so far. And I'm on the visual editor view right now. So we went from prepping the SEC data, we fine-tuned the Llama model, we packaged it, deployed it, evaluated it. And there are steps in here to terminate the workflow if there is any error condition that the model runs into, or you can go ahead and register that model. You can scale this workflow up to 200 steps, and in certain cases even higher, and you can run these workflows concurrently thousands of times. So if I had to, let's say, modify this workflow and add in one more fine-tuning step for a different model, let's say a mixed model, I can just drag it here, set all the configurations, and attach it to the rest of the pipeline. It's showing me errors right now because I did not fill in all the configurations here, the required configurations. And that's a nice feature that assists you as you keep improving and updating your workflows. And once I execute, it will keep running in the back end, and you don't have to necessarily observe it in real time. It will notify you whenever something goes wrong. So that, in a nutshell, was a journey with SageMaker Studio. as you progress through that entire ML lifecycle, right from customization to deployment. Next, I'll have Ankush on stage to show you an interesting use case at his organization. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Piyush, for such a nice demo. So today I'll be talking about how we are accelerating AI at GoDaddy. Actually, before even we explore how we are using AI to transform the GoDaddy customer experience, let's focus on what drives us. At heart, we are all entrepreneurs, whether we are starting a business, a personal brand, or leading a project or a cause. That drive to make an impact lies within all of us. And GoDaddy's purpose is to fuel that drive. This purpose is captured in our mission statement to empower entrepreneurs everywhere, making opportunity more inclusive for all. This is because we believe that every idea deserves to take flight, and every vision deserves the support to thrive. Our vision statement reaches even further. We are not only providing tools to our entrepreneurs, we are carving a path for them to build in massive success and kind of create an impactful presence online. So the world is changing. So our mission and vision is coming to life through our commitment to innovation. To truly empower entrepreneurs in today's digital world, we have to offer them with relevant digital tools. And that's where GoDaddy Aero comes in. It's a unified AI platform that supports entrepreneurs at every step of their journey. So with Aero, we leverage the power of AI across three critical areas: identity, presence, and commerce. It all begins with identity. Aero's AI domain search engine provides relevant domain name suggestions to entrepreneurs so that they can secure their identity, which is unique and that stands out. And beyond domains, we also offer AI tools for entrepreneurs for brand building, whether it's from logo creation to website content generation. This actually enables entrepreneurs to create a cohesive, impactful online presence. Finally, with AI-driven commerce tools, we are simplifying the journey from brand creation to growth. So today we will be focusing on the architecture that supports AI domain search. So at its core, the system leverages a robust ML infrastructure that is backed by SageMaker and AWS, which has a main role of providing relevant, personalized, data-driven domain name suggestions to empower our entrepreneurs. AI domain search is a result of seamless collaboration among our ML scientists, engineers, and product teams. So this cross-functional approach enables us to stay ahead of customer expectations and also deliver continuously a unified user experience. So with a centralized AI platform, again backed by SageMaker, so we are trying to streamline every phase of the ML lifecycle, whether it's the model training, the model development, including the dataset preparation. AWS provides scalability and reliability to our data infrastructure, and where we are processing massive amounts of customer data and market data, and also real-time customer signals plays a very important, crucial role for us in refining our ML models to make sure that we are understanding our customer needs and responding to them in real time. So GoDaddy AI domain search journey is a story of innovation and customer impact. As you can see on the screen, we have moved beyond the basic suggestions, leveraging data like preferred TLDs, popular keywords, and market trends to kind of deliver a more personalized conversation-style domain name suggestions to truly fit to the needs of today's customers. We have processed over 1 billion potential domain names based on customer profiles and carefully curated a potential high-quality data set that is optimized for real-time delivery. Continuing with the journey. With what we have discussed so far, I've been talking about domain name suggestions. So what do we know about the challenge? Finding a perfect domain name is crucial for brand building. And it has been increasingly difficult in today's crowded market. Popular domain names, as most of you might know, would be already taken, which is leaving our entrepreneurs frustrated with limited options. Our goal was to create a solution that can offer these relevant domain names that are personalized and also available. We tried to address this issue by fine-tuning the LLM model with GoDaddy proprietary domain dataset. Instead of attacking the problem with massive generic LLMs with hundreds of billions of parameters, we focused on smaller, purpose-built model that was tailored for domain discovery. The Llama 2.7b model, available at that time, proved to be a perfect fit for this task. Like I mentioned before, real-time signals is very crucial for us. We started incorporating real-time signals into our system, like the past preferences of the customers, past searches, what are the regional trends. And this enables us to cater our domain suggestions completely towards customer likings. And we ensure that it's not only market competitive, but also aligns with the customer needs. The results speak for themselves. AI domain search has outperformed traditional deep learning models, and it also has delivered an improvement in engagement across generic solutions. So at the end of the day, what does this entire pipeline mean for our entrepreneurs? So going back to the challenge, it means that they can actually find that perfect domain. They can build their brand with confidence, and turning their dreams into reality has become just a step closer than ever before. So let's see how it all comes together in action. Starting from bottom to top, we start with data layer, where we focus on GoDaddy's proprietary domain search data. So we use AWS services such as EMR, Athena, and others to process these features or process this raw data into structured and meaningful features. We then store these features in Feature Store and S3 for batch training purposes, and then also in cache for real-time inference. So this is also crucial because it allows us to deliver these domain suggestions instantly in milliseconds time. Our fine-tuning process leverages SageMaker foundational model and, of course, tailored and customized with the GoDaddy proprietary data that has bubbled up from the layer below. So this is the most important layer that enables us to kind of provide high-quality, targeted, personalized domain name suggestions to our customers. So once fine-tuned, the model operates through SageMaker endpoints. And of course, like whether to either deliver suggestions in real time or if there are any other processes that scrapes and serves in a later time. So with SageMaker MLflow connecting all the 3 layers and SageMaker Studio features such as automatic instance scaling and idle shutdown, few of the teams at GoDaddy has been able to achieve up to 20% in cost savings. Additionally, SageMaker Studio, as you all know, provides a cohesive environment to streamline every stage of the AI development pipeline. As we proceed towards our journey, we are working with AWS SageMaker team to unlock even greater value to our customers, whether it's by streamlining model deployment via APIs or enabling faster and more generic generative AI features. And we are also focusing on incorporating a high-volume data store that is optimized for data access to deliver precise AI updates to our customers. SageMaker AutoML is something we are exploring where it helps to accelerate model deployment, which of course fuels our innovation. And we are also focusing on integration with AWS Data Lake, Redshift, EMR in order to strengthen our data exploration and boost AI efficiency. So through our GenAI journey with AI domain search and other solutions, we have gained valuable insights that I would like to share with you so that you can accelerate your own AI impact. So putting your tools or centralizing your tools in a platform such as SageMaker Studio will drive innovation because it streamlines all your workflows and handles most of the orchestration parts. And efficient resource management through automation will help scale up your AI while keeping all of your costs down. Be open to encourage an open and experimentative culture among your teams so that they can share and learn, which will, again, further fuel innovation. Finally, AI is ever evolving, right? So continuously iterate, adapt, and respond to the changing customer needs. So this was a lot of list items, but here's the final thought I want to leave you with. At GoDaddy, we are committed to drive the entrepreneurial interests with AI. As you embark your own AI journey, remember with the right platform, right practices, and right mindset, you can also unlock extraordinary value to your customers. So together, let's harness the power of AI to create purposeful, meaningful solutions. Thank you. And with that, I would invite Sumit and Piyush back to the stage.
Thanks, Ankush. So thank you for attending today. And I think we have a few minutes left to take on a few questions. Even at the end of this talk, we'll be available outside to take on more questions in case if your turn doesn't come up. So feel free to shoot. Anyone? Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, I would encourage you to definitely go into the app and provide feedback for this session. It really helps us to understand what kind of content we should be presenting to you. So please take some time to rate this session and provide your feedback. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, folks.